there everyone, welcome to Yin Yoga practice. This is designed to begin to open and stretch your hips. So as I'm sure many of you know, I myself know from personal experience that the hips are an area that can get quite tight. We hold on to a lot of our emotional tensions and stresses here, as well as, of course, physical tensions that come about through things like other activities, so cycling, walking, swimming, but also from a lot of time of sitting in a chair, which can create a feeling of congestion around the hips and the pelvis. So for today's practice, you don't really need a huge amount of equipment. You might like to have a bolster or a couple of pillows nearby to hand, and you might also like a blanket because you're going to be spending a little bit of time kneeling. So make sure you've got everything that you think you're going to need to help you be comfortable throughout the practice, and we'll begin. Excuse me. So we're going to begin in a kneeling position. So you can kneel just as I am now, back onto your feet if this is comfortable for you. You might like to be a little bit more comfortable, especially around your knees, sit up onto a bolster. So if you do take a support like this, or maybe a couple of pillows, then you would usually sit on the end. And what can be helpful is, before you sit all the way down, is to put your hands onto your calf muscles, roll the flesh of your calf out, and then come to sit. And this can create a little bit more space for the backs of the knees. So find your way into a comfortable kneeling position. If you can't kneel, perhaps you've got an ankle injury or problems with your knees, or it's just not comfortable for you, just sit however is comfortable for you. We want to bring a little bit of length to the spine. So as you find your way into the comfortable seated position, you might like to begin to close your eyes and take a few moments to arrive. And I often like to start my practice by taking a longer breath in through the nose and then releasing that breath out through the mouth. And you can do this a few times. This is thought to be good for your vagus nerve, supporting your parasympathetic nervous system, bringing you into a more restful state of being. And it can also be useful just to take this time to stop from your day's activities, depending on what time of day you're practicing. Perhaps stopping from any busyness that you've been experiencing in the week. And just to come back to yourself. So we're coming back to our bodies, to our breath, to our minds, to our hearts. Yoga, the practice of connection. And we start by reconnecting to ourselves. So bring a little bit more length through your spine now. Feel as though you're lifting lightly up through the inside of your armpits. And then as you next inhale, take your arms wide, palms up, nice and slow. Reach your arms all the way up to the ceiling. Bring your palms up overhead. And then exhale, hands together, down to the heart. We'll do that 2 more times. So do it slowly. Really feel as though you're trying to push the air up towards the ceiling. Inhaling up. Exhaling, palms touching as you bring your hands back to your heart. And 1 more breath. Reaching up through your armpits, through your fingertips. Exhaling. Bring your hands all the way down to your heart. And then releasing your seated position. So if you are using any equipment, pop that to the side. And we're going to come into a lunge. So this is where you might want a folded blanket underneath your knees, just so you've got extra comfort and padding for your knees. I'm on a fairly hard floor, so if you're on a carpet or rug, you might not feel the need for this, but I think it's always good to try and make ourselves comfortable in a yoga practice. So we're coming to an all fours position, and we're going to start by stepping the right foot forward. So we take quite a big step forward, a big step from the heel from this back knee. The bigger the step, the deeper the posture. And then start to lunge forward into it. So we're coming into a lunge. Now remember that in the yin yoga practice, you don't want to go to your fullest range of movement, because we are going to be here for a couple of minutes. And lunges can be tough. These are not easy postures to hold for a long time. So don't go straight to your maximum, because you might not be able to bear it. So think about working to maybe 60, 70% of your capacity. You can see here I'm resting on my fingertips. You might be able to come down onto the palms of your hands. If you've got yoga bricks or something similar that you want to rest up on, you can. But it's quite important that we have this feeling of the torso sinking forward. So this is not about coming upright with the spine. This is about sinking forward and down. And my back foot, I've currently got my toes curled under. You can also have the top of your foot flat. I recommend that you do the one that feels most comfortable for your kneecap. So whatever feels most stable for the knee. So today for me, I think I'm going to stick with having my toes curled under. And of course, I'm turning my head to look at the screen at the moment so that you can see and hear me clearly. But ideally, you don't really want to be turning your head. So you might find it's more comfortable if you're just looking down at the floor, somewhere a few inches in front of that right foot. So maybe towards the top of the mat. And just finding your breath here. So you may be feeling this on the front of your left thigh, this back leg. Some of you may be feeling it around this right outer hip. We all generally tend to feel things in slightly different places, and there's no real right or wrong way to feel the stretch here. So let's just take a couple more full deep breaths. One more. And then you're going to take a big step back with that right foot. Come onto your hands and knees. Have your hands slightly wider than your shoulders, but your knees together. And then just rock your hips a little bit from side to side, so that you're just easing out any congestion that's crept in. And then we're going to take this on to the other side. So I'm going to turn so that I can still be facing towards you as we step the left foot forward. So hands either side of that leg. Remember, going for a fairly long stance, and then just seeing where you want your back foot to rest, toes curled or foot flat. And really thinking of having your torso, the weight of your torso sinking forward and down, so that you're using the weight of your body to really emphasize putting a little bit more weight onto this front leg. And deepening that sense of stretch, coming all the way through the hamstring here, all the way through your pelvis to the front of your right thigh. So use your breath, particularly if these are quite challenging postures for you to be in, and they are challenging, the lunges, particularly if you run or cycle or do any activities that make your leg muscles quite strong, then it's hard to stretch these muscles. These are big muscles that we're working with, and they do carry a lot of our attention, particularly at times when we feel a bit unsafe in the world, when we feel ungrounded, when perhaps we feel a bit insecure. Then often we can experience that pain anywhere from our lower back down through our hips and into our legs. So always use your breath. Your breath is a wonderful resource. It massages out your whole internal system, all of your organs, helps fresh blood and oxygen to get to your muscles. So it really helps with this practice of deep stretch. Let's just enjoy a few more breaths. Keep softness around your face, softness around your shoulders. And then when you are ready, let's take another big step back. So we come back to our all fours position. Tuck your toes under and then lift up into a downward facing dog. So lift your hips up, push your hips back, and make this one really easy. So keep a bend in your knees and go for a little bit of stretch through your spine. So don't worry at all about straight legs. You might walk your legs on the spot a little bit, just to stretch out the calves. And then once again, come down onto your hands and knees. Well done, it's the first one over with. And once again, from an all fours position, stepping your right foot forward. So in this version, you want to step your foot out slightly wider, and you can either keep your toes facing directly forward to the top of the mat, or you can take your toes off the mat. So your heel is on the mat and your toes are off the mat. See what feels most comfortable for your pelvis here. Both hands are coming to the inside of the foot. So make sure that your arms are still at least a width, shoulder width apart, that you kind of haven't squashed yourself too close together. Really use the width of your mat. So slightly wider lunge here. This is called lizard pose, or sometimes called gecko pose. So again, the gaze is slightly down towards the mat. Press lightly into your fingertips here, so you have a sense of lifting up and away from the mat. So you're not collapsing through your wrists. It's like you've got a little frozen pea beneath the palm of your hand. So you're trying to lift up away from that tiny pea, Hasta Bandha. And using your breath here. And allow yourself just to connect down with your pelvis so that you're really feeling everything that's going on around the hips and the front of the thighs, around your pelvic floor. And try and keep your eyes really soft here. Watch out for the shoulders jumping up to the ears. Keep pulling them down. You can have a slight curve in your spine, that's fine. But just don't completely let go of the shoulders. One more breath. And then we're going to step that right leg back. And then step that left leg forward. So again, taking a long step. Either keep your toes facing forward or turn the toes off the mat. The longer the step, the deeper the posture. But remembering that we are here for 2 minutes. So finding your way into the position. Have that sense of activity through the hands, so you're not just flopping forward, but there's a sense of lightly lifting the breastbone up. So our focus is predominantly on the lower half of the body today, around your hips in particular. It means you've got a little bit of leeway with things like your upper spine and your arms and your head. So you can keep your head lightly lifted. And you can also just drop your head so your chin comes in towards your chest. So if your head gets tired, if your neck gets tired holding your head here, you can just drop it for a few moments, but don't completely lose the whole upper back. Find your breath. One side, of course, might feel very different to the other. This is very normal and natural, nothing to worry about. And we've just got a few more breaths here, so stay with it if you can. Your body can do so much, and the mind usually doesn't like the discomfort. The mind wants you to move out sooner. So we've just got a few more breaths. So breathe into any areas that are feeling a little bit tense. then when you are ready, once again, take that big step back with your left foot. And stay on your all fours position and turn your hands out so that your hands, your fingertips are facing away from one another. And take a gentle rock from side to side. So not a particularly big movement, but just to stretch out your wrists a little bit. And once you've done that a few times, come to stillness and then see if your hands can turn any more so that your fingers are turning in the direction of your thighs. And then again, a small movement, just rock forward and backwards. So this is a really good way to stretch out your wrists and your forearms. It can be really intense if you're not used to doing this sort of stretch. So work within your limits. You should always be able to breathe. And so after a few of those movements, again, you're going to turn your hands all the way forward. Tuck your toes under, sit back onto your heels for a moment if you can. And just give the wrists a little bit of a circle. So just to give some respite to the hands. This is also a good way just to wake up your feet. I know this also is a bit strong if your feet are a bit stiff, but your toes won't snap off. At least that hasn't happened to me yet in my years of teaching, so I don't think it will suddenly happen now. Okay, we've got one more of our lunge sequence. And we're in this one for slightly less time. This one's more a minute rather than 2. You might be pleased to hear that. So we're coming back onto our hands and knees. And again, we're stepping the right foot forward. So just like we did a moment ago, toes are turned out, heels on the mat. So we've got a wide stance. And then we're going to bring a little bit more weight into the left hand and bring the right hand up onto the thigh, so that we're coming into a bit more of a twist here. So we're going to stay sinking down through the pelvis. You can keep your hand on your thigh, it can be towards your knee. You might bring it onto your hip, doesn't matter too much where the hand is coming. What we want to think about is getting the chest beginning to turn and open. So we're coming in to stretch the psoas muscle here, the long, thick hip flexor muscle that's in your deep core. Carries a lot of tension. I often do a lot of work on the psoas muscle in my restorative classes. So let's just take a couple more breaths. If it's uncomfortable to have your head lifted, just look down. Full breath. And then turn your torso towards the floor, place both hands down, take a big step back with your right foot, and then we'll do that on the left. So left foot comes forward, toes turned out, so that your hands, when they're both on the mat, are at least shoulder width apart. And then we lift the torso slightly, turn the chest, bringing the the left hand onto your thigh. So again, we're looking for this opening of the chest. So you can turn your chin towards your top shoulder. This brings slightly more twist to the neck. It's not really essential that you do this. You can have your chin in line with your breastbone. And if that's also too tiring, just drop your chin towards your right shoulder. So you don't really want to put too much strain in your neck. Remember, focusing on this lower half of the body, there's a sense of sinking your pelvis down. Nice full deep breath. Keep pressing lightly into your right fingers. One more breath. And then coming out of the posture, well done. We're going to step back to hands and knees, coming to child's pose. So knees either together or about hip width apart. And if you can, bring your hands down by your feet with your palms up. Let your forehead rest completely down to the floor. So we take just a gentle rest for the spine here. come out of the posture, bring your hands somewhere in front of your knees, push yourself all the way up and make your way to seated. So you might like to have your folded blanket here, folded up so that you've got a little seat beneath you. If you've got a yoga block to hand, of course, feel free to use that. So we're going to sit with the legs straight out in front of us, and then we're taking the legs wide. So go wider than your hips, but also just to a point that feels comfortable for you to sit. So it's really important that you're sitting up on something here, so your sitting bones are reaching away from the floor. The only exception to that is if you're hypermobile, so very bendy in your joints. You usually know about it if you are, in which case sit on the mat. So that's just for the hypermobile people. The rest of us are sitting up on some height. So have your toes pointing up towards the ceiling to begin with. Hands can be on the floor in front of you or on your thighs, and just have this sense of growing tall through your spine. So it can already be a lot of hard work just to sit like this, just to sit tall with the spine, with the legs wide. So let's begin by taking a few breaths here. So you might like to close your eyes, so you're bringing your attention to your inner world, inner landscape, and deepening your breath. When you are ready, you can use your exhale to start to walk your hands forward. And you might not come very far. Remember that we're not trying to work to our fullest range of movement, so we don't need to get to our furthest forward fold. But actually it's quite hard to come forward sitting in this position, particularly if you've got very stable joints around your pelvis. They don't always let you have so much movement to come forward. So don't be impatient with yourself. Don't get frustrated. There is no right way to do this posture. This is about feeling into the posture. So we're targeting here around the inside of your thighs, but also around your lower back slightly. So you might find that as you just start to soften and relax in the posture, you can come further forward. Your hands can stay out in front, or you can bring them onto your legs. Again, plenty of options in terms of exactly where you position your hands. And you might like to keep your eyes closed here. Sometimes it can be a helpful way just to pay attention to how your body is feeling. For other people, closing their eyes kind of takes them off into a daydream, which might not be helpful. Sometimes we need to stay present with our body. We need to stay present with sensations, even if we consider them to be unpleasant. Because sometimes we have situations in life which are unpleasant and we need to be able to respond and deal with them. So yoga is really helping us to develop those skills of resilience and a mental stamina, as well as the physical stamina we can gain. So you're giving your body time to stretch and yield to the posture, for the muscles to stretch, the connective tissue to begin to release. It's this which sometimes means that we find that after a couple minutes in a posture we can suddenly go further forward. So we're over halfway, but we've still got a little way to go. Now, if this is unbearable for you, if you're really hating it, I will take a moment just to show you another option. So if you're fine with this, stay where you are. For those of you that would like a different option, you can come back to child pose, taking your knees wide. So your knees would come about as wide as the mat, and then you fold forward. This might not be suitable if you've got sacroiliac joint problems. Otherwise, you can come all the way forward. And this will do a similar thing in terms of stretching your inner thighs and stretching around your lower back. So feel free to take that option. You can either do it now for the last minute or for the next time you do this practice. our bodies are always different every day, so don't necessarily expect yourself to experience the yoga the same every day. So what I like about the yin yoga is the slowness of it. I think it helps us to slow down our minds when we slow down the body. I know my mind can get very busy, very active. And so I enjoy this opportunity to slow down and become clearer in my mind, clearer about what I need to do. And so from here, we're going to come up. So if you went into wide-legged child's pose, come up and out of that as well. Slide your legs together. Sometimes you need to do this really slowly. You've been in that posture for 4 minutes. Well done. And then bring your knees up towards you. Give yourself a little hug, like a little reward for the last posture. So give yourself a little hug. And you can drop your head completely here so that you stretch through your spine. Sighing is always a good sign in the yin yoga. It shows that you've worked deeply, that you're reorganizing your body, really, reorganizing your skeleton. And that the changes that we make are quite profound. So it's really natural to need to sigh or yawn or feel a little bit vulnerable in between postures. So just acknowledge that, be aware. And then we are going to come to our next hip opener. So pigeon posture. Now, before I launch straight into it, I know that pigeon posture can be really difficult, particularly if you have problems with your hips, ankles and knees. So I want to show you an option for anyone that's injured and can't do the full pigeon posture. However, I'll show you the option, but I'm also, when we come to do pigeon, I'm going to show you how to do it using things like your bolster and pillows, because we can't avoid the postures that we dislike all of the time. Sometimes we have to practice the ones that are harder in order to get those parts of the body to open. So hopefully you'll be doing this video more than once, and every time you come to practice it, you can explore, how do I feel today? Do I feel like being really soft and nurturing, taking the path of least resistance? Or do I feel actually like, okay, I might work a little bit more with the postures that I find challenging? And every day is different. The answer to that is always different. So you just come back to yourself and your heart and you listen to the guidance there. So the alternative for those of you with the hip, knee, ankle problems is that you would do this onto your back and you bring your right leg over your left knee. So this is your option. You stay here instead. So this will work with your hip in the same way. You can always lift your left thigh off the floor, catch hold of your thigh. So this is another option. So you're working with your hip in the same way, but without so much of your weight coming down through your hips and your legs. So that option is there for anyone that wants to take it. Otherwise, we'll come into the full posture. So again, feel free to have a blanket here to support your knees. Also, if you do have a bolster or pillow nearby, you might want to have that so that you can easily reach it. So we'll come into pigeon pose on the right side first of all. So starting in your all fours position, you're going to take your right knee towards your right wrist. Let me just move my bolster so you can see. And face this way a moment. When you bring your leg forward, your foot, you can wiggle it forward slightly, but you don't want to grab it and pull it. The aim is not for your foot and knee to be in one straight line. For some of you that may be the case, depending on the shape of your hips, but for a lot of us it won't be the case. It certainly isn't the case for me. So never grab your foot and pull your foot forward. All you'll do is hurt your knees. It won't actually help you open your hips at all. So we take the right knee forward and we take the foot to the left side of the mat, and then we reach back with this left leg. So a blanket can be really helpful here for your knee, but also your thigh. We start in this upright position. Now, if your pelvis is really high from the floor, there's nothing wrong with that, but you might find if you've got a bolster or a cushion, that you pop that under your buttock, and that helps to give you a little bit of support. So, if you've got anything to hand, you want to explore that. Something under your right buttock, something under your left thigh can be really helpful. So, have a sense of activity through your spine. So your breastbone is lightly moving forward. You're gazing straight ahead, perhaps slightly down. I know this is hard for a lot of people. It used to be really difficult for me. When I did my yoga teacher training, I found it agony to stay here for a long time. And although that was quite a few years ago now, and I can still find hip openers quite difficult, certainly nothing like how I used to experience them. So there is hope for us all. The key is just persistent practice, never overdoing it, never pushing too hard in one practice, but just enjoying the yoga so that you can keep coming back to it. So that it's something that you want to do, you're not forcing yourself to do. So see if you can enjoy the last couple of breaths here. Make them slow and long. Keep your shoulders soft. And then fold yourself forward. So for a lot of people, it gets easier at this stage. Again, not for everyone. When you fold forward, you're welcome to, if you have something nearby, you're welcome to come on to something like a bolster. You can come all the way down onto your elbows. Some of you may even come all the way to the mat. Again, you don't always need to go to your fullest range of movement. Be somewhere that you can maintain. Breathe into it. So remember that you don't have to keep your head lifted. You can always just drop and relax your head. Where you feel this stretch may change the longer that you're in it. Generally speaking, the most common area to feel it is around this outer right hip area. You might also feel it somewhere on the inside of your right thigh, maybe on the front of your left thigh, maybe across the back of your pelvis, around your piriformis. So remember to use your breath as if you could breathe directly into those spaces that are stretching and opening. Just one more breath here. And then to come out of the posture, lift yourself up and slowly push yourself up. We're going to come into downward facing dog again, so that you can enjoy a stretch out through your legs, bending one knee and the other, maybe taking your hips from side to side, really whatever's feeling good. And then we'll come on to the other side. So remember, If you're doing this lying on your back, you can have your foot on the floor or your leg lifted, and you've got plenty of time to explore both of those options. If you're coming into the full posture, you're taking your left knee towards your wrist. Notice your foot moving to the right. Reach back with that right leg. You can walk your foot back, starting in your upright position. So have a sense here of really opening through your chest. You can be on your fingertips here. If you've got bricks or blocks that you want under your hands, feel free to place them there. Use your breath. So this side might feel quite different than the other. You might want that support, maybe your bolster or your pillow under your left buttock here. So notice what's happening in the muscles of your face. Hopefully you're not glaring at the screen or glaring at anything. Try and keep your eyes really soft. So sometimes what's helpful when we're in a challenging posture is to imagine that your eyes are actually in the inside of your head, as if they were in line with your ears, so that you're looking from the middle of your head, looking behind where your actual physical eyes are. This has the effect of softening the diaphragm muscle, softening the breath, and can sometimes make things a little bit easier. Sometimes. So let's have one more breath here. And then folding yourself forward, nice and slowly and gently. Always be mindful of your knees. So coming onto your elbows, resting on a bolster. You can always, if your head gets tired, sometimes you can make two fists with your hands, place them on top of each other, rest your forehead down. So we're not here to fatigue the neck. So you can explore exactly where you position your hands, your arms, your head, your neck. So sometimes we are adding tension to our experience with our thoughts. So it's not that we have to delude ourselves. If something is difficult, then it's difficult. But we can also be curious about it. So how does this feel? Really dive into the sensation, almost as if you're becoming the sensation. You're no longer separate from it. And you will notice that things are happening, even if your body feels really stiff today, really stuck, that things are happening around your muscles and your tissues, but also things like your heart rate, the frequency of your breath, your blood pressure. So let's have one more breath. And then use your arms to push yourself all the way up. Well done. If you've been lying on your back, you can join us now into a downward facing dog. I always need to move really slowly when I've been sitting for a long time. So take your time. There's no rush. Downward dog is to stretch out. So move a little bit in it. Reach
one heel to the floor, followed by your second heel. Walking on the spots. Push your hips up and back. Gently shake your head yes and no a couple of times. Take a sigh, a yawn. And then come back down onto your hands and knees. And we'll make our way back to sitting. So again, have your folded blanket or your block to sit up on. And I've got a couple of different leg positions for you to explore, depending on how you're feeling at this stage of class. So the first option is to sit cross-legged. So you have your right leg in front, and ideally what you're looking for is not this, not squashing the legs together, but sliding your feet under your knees and pointing your toes forward. So you can always take the flesh of your calves and roll it forward here, so you've got more space. You might not be able to get to that straight away, but just think about heading in that direction, so that when you look down, you should see a decent amount of the mat in between your legs. So this is option one. Option two is to have your left leg straight and bring your right leg over the top. So this is your second option. This can feel, for some people, a bit intense on the back of this left knee. So if you choose this option and you get any pain in the back knee, come out of it. Usually having a rolled up blanket or cushion under this knee can help. So this is option two. And then option three, similar to the first option with the crossed legs, but we're going to take the right leg and pop it on top of the left leg. So your foot is above your left knee, and your left knee is beneath your right knee. So it's sometimes called a square pose or fire log pose. So as you can see, my knee is quite high up. Your knee might be even higher up, or your knee might be coming directly down towards your foot. If your knee is super high, I recommend you take one of the other options. So find the option that's going to work for you in terms of seated. Start sitting up tall. Fingertips can come on the floor beside you to offer some support. Take a breath in here, grow taller, and as you exhale, start to come forward. So you're moving from your hips. Again, it's a slow movement. And you'll be able to notice for me, I'm doing the third option, square pose, that slowly my knee is coming to my foot. Slowly. I'm not doing it. I'm not pushing my knee down. I'm not forcing it to happen. But what's happening is because my body has done this posture lots of times before, it remembers what it needs to do. So for me, it's muscle tension that makes me start here. And as I start to relax and stretch the muscles, the knee starts to drop. Now, this might also happen for you the longer that we're in a posture, the more that you practice. For some people, no matter how much practice they do and how long they stay in a posture, the knee will stubbornly stay high. This often indicates that your pelvis is built in a certain way, that your joints are very secure and they're just not going to budge. So you're not going to always go further forward. So remember that if your knee is very high and it's not going down, go back to one of the other options, either sitting cross-legged or with your right leg on the top of your left straight leg. So we've got time in this posture. So we've done this position quite a lot. We're doing this with our legs a moment ago in a pigeon posture. So really working quite deeply with the rotation of the hips, the external rotation, opening of your hips. Also here coming into your lower back slightly around your glutes and your piriformis. So remember, no rush. This isn't about how far forward you can go, how quickly you can get there. It's about slowing down, developing a quality of patience. In one of my favourite poems, there's a line which says something like, dwelling in the joy of slow time. Something like that. And sometimes I really have to remind myself of that, just to slow down. There's no rush, nowhere to go particularly. So whilst the mind, of course, is an amazing tool that we all have, it can sometimes be a bit overworked. We can get a little bit caught up in our thoughts. And our thoughts can run at 1,000,000 miles an hour, and we can time travel in our thoughts into the past, into the future. It can be a good thing, but sometimes unhelpful. But our body and our breath are always here now. They're always in this moment. And so this is where yoga is such a fantastic way of working with your mind, because we're working with that mind-body connection. And bringing the mind and the body together through the bridge of your breath, helping you to feel more integrated, more present in this moment, more whole, just as you are. So let's just take a few more breaths here. One last breath. And then on your inhale, come up, well done. And like all of our hip openers, I have to move very slowly when I come out of them. So don't rush, stretch your legs out. You can lean back on your hands, bend your knees and rock a little bit from side to side. You can always do this on your elbows as well, and you can always lift your feet off the floor. So we have a little bit of movement in between all these long, still postures. You're doing really well if you're still with me. The other side. So if you can, do the same leg position as you did on the right side. Unless, of course, you've got, quite a noticeable difference between the two. But usually it's ideal to work in an equal way. So we've either got the left leg crossed in front, we've got the left leg crossed on top of the straight right leg, perhaps with some support under this knee, or we've got the square pose where you're taking your left ankle on top of your right knee, and your left knee comes above your right foot. One side can be very different to the other here. The fingers start either side of your hips, starting with a few breaths here to length through the spine. So you can see here, my knee is already lower to my foot than it was on the other side. So you might notice something similar in yourself. And just when you're ready, you start to walk your hands forward, slowly, slowly. We've got plenty of time. So we're using the breath to help us stay present, the breath to help us get more oxygen into our bodies, so that we're supporting the body in these deep, long stretches. The breath also helping the mind to stay calm and relaxed. So remember the breath we did at the very beginning, breathing in through the nose and out through your mouth. Come back to that as often as you like. And what's great about practicing yoga at home, you could be wearing your pajamas, you could have just literally rolled out of bed. You can also make any sounds that you like, moaning, groaning, weeping. Hopefully not too much weeping. And I say that, but actually the hips they're the seat of our emotions. The second chakra, Swadhisthana chakra, it's often the seat of the unconscious emotions. We think of the heart space as our emotional space, and our certainly is the space where we can think about how we give and receive love and compassion. The heart space expands all the way out through the arms. So there's a sense of what we're doing with our arms, what we're doing with ourselves, our work, the way that we touch, etc. But actually down here in the pelvis, the murky, mysterious pelvis, is often where any traumatic experiences are held, anything that we haven't been able to process, understand properly, perhaps from our childhood or earlier life. So I certainly have shed a few tears in yoga practice on many a time, and especially doing work with my hips. I know it might seem like I'm sitting here just chatting away to you now, but it hasn't always been like this for me. So really stay with it, breathe deep. If it gets too much, you just come out. You know, you just come out, that's fine. Be different on another day. But we're well over 2 minutes now. So we're well over halfway. We're actually 3/4 of the way through. So sometimes this is where things change. So at some point in those last few minutes, my knee has dropped down towards my foot. Again, I haven't made that happen. I haven't forced it to happen. I can feel some really deep stretching coming around my left outer hip, into my glutes, even around onto this side actually as well. Just staying with it for a few more breaths. Remember, you can move your head. I often will just gently move my head from side to side a little bit if I feel like my neck's getting fatigued. And just stretch your neck a little bit. So let's just take 2 more breaths. And then use your inhale, come all the way up. Well done. Stretch your legs out. Lean back onto your wrist or your forearm. You can point your feet forwards and backwards. Bend your knees and rock a little bit. Okay. Our last posture. So again, this is one that's not always immediately accessible for us if we're beginners, or if we do things like cycling, then this posture can be a difficult one to do. So as always, I'll show you a few different ways you can do it. So you will need a bolster. If you're using pillows from your bed, you want at least 2. Bolsters are very firm, so you need to be able to recreate that. The bolster is going to go onto your mat. Your folded blanket can also act as a cushion here for your head. So I'll show you this first option. This is kind of the hardest option actually that I'm starting with. So if you can't sit like this, this option is not for you. So let me just put that in as a caveat first of all. So our first option is we're sitting onto the feet, and then you're going to lower yourself all the way back onto your bolster, and you need lots of support for your head. You don't want your chin sticking to the ceiling, you want your chin towards your chest. Arms relaxed down by the side. A second way to do this is your feet go either side of your hip. So your bottom is actually on the floor. And some people find this more comfortable. So you can have your feet next to your hips, knees parallel with your hips. You can have your feet underneath your hips and your knees slightly wider than your feet. Now, what often happens when we try and do this for the first time is we get to about here and we can't go back any further. Do not force yourself to go back further. I have some options for you. So your first option, in fact, I'm just going to reach for a second bolster, is to make a higher lift. So you could get another bolster or another pillow. And for those of you that do practice a lot of yoga with me at home, I really recommend a bolster. It's a worthwhile investment if you're going to be doing quite a lot at home. So if you make this tower, you want it to not be too saggy in the middle, then you can see when you come back, you don't have to go so low. So there's less of an arch in your spine. So you're a little bit more higher up. So this can be a good option to take. Another option is to do this on your bed. Having a soft mattress beneath you will help. And then this is the full posture with both legs. The other option is to do it with one leg at a time. So you sit back and then reach your left leg out. So your right foot, I face this way for a moment just to show you, is next to your hip. I'm not sitting on this foot, it's next to my hip. And then you do one leg at a time. So this is another option. If none of that is going to work for you, see if you can come back how we started. Sitting, it's called Virasana. These are all different ways of doing Virasana, hero pose. So sitting up from some height, you've still got the sense of lengthening through your thighs. That's really what we're getting at in this posture. We want to lengthen the quads, stretch the quads. So if none of those lying down options are available, you come up to sit like this. So don't be aggressive with your body, particularly when you're practicing at home and doing postures that you might not have ever done before without a teacher there. Be cautious, take your time. You certainly don't want to risk injury. So whichever option you've taken, come into your breath. Keeping some softness around the mouth as you exhale. And then staying where you are for a bit longer, unless you are doing one leg at a time. So if you've been doing one leg at a time, you can push yourself up, release your bent leg, and take it on the other side. So remember, the foot is next to your hip, and then leaning yourself back. If you're still in the more upright version, or you're doing the version with both legs bent, stay where you are with your breath for a bit longer if you can. So this is really good for your digestion. You might have just heard my tummy gurgling there. You get lots of length here through the front of your body, stretching out your digestive system, as well as, of course, stretching into the front of your thighs. When you're ready to come out, whichever option that you've taken, always move slowly and gently. Be mindful of your knees. They're in deep flexion here. You come out however feels the easiest way. If you've been using some support, push that to the side. Take one final downward facing dog. One final stretch. Pull your spine, your legs. And then make your way into Shavasana. So take anything you're going to need to be warm and comfortable. You can keep your blanket as a cushion for your head. You might like another blanket to keep you warm. Socks. Perhaps you want something under your knees. If you've got an eye pillow, you're of course welcome to use your eye pillow. So we're going to give ourselves a well-earned rest in Shavasana. So whole body coming down. So take a few moments to just wiggle your shoulders, your arms, your legs, get really comfortable before you let your eyes close. And you find your way into the stillness of the posture. And of course, if you have longer, you would like to rest here for more time, then you are very welcome to do so. Otherwise, you can start to move your body again, starting maybe down in your fingers and your toes, your ankles, your wrists. Maybe enjoying stretch through your arms and your legs, a sigh, a yawn. And then taking your time to roll gently onto your side. And just resting here. Make sure your head is supported. Come up to sit when you are ready. Sit comfortably. Bring your hands to your heart. Inhale, lift through your spine. Exhale, bow your head to your heart. Nodding a little thank you to your body and all that your body does for you. And we'll end the practice there. Namaste. Thank you for joining me, everyone. Well done. I hope you feel the difference in your hips now when you get up and walk around. It feels a little bit Elvis-like. If you come back to this practice again, there's always lots of different options for you to take to make it more comfortable. And I promise you that the hips do start to open. They can be quite stubborn and need coaxing. So enjoy the practice, enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.